wouldn't simply end in Korea alone. Which hunter belonging to a country would be capable of stopping a calamity that Hunter Seong Jin Woo couldn't stop? From the closest nations, North Korea, Japan, China, Russia, and to the far-flung nations such as America, Germany, Britain, and France, their hunters hurriedly set off for Seoul in order to make it in time. There was only one thought within their minds. We need to aid Hunter Seong Jin Woo and block the supermassive gate, no matter the cost. The notion of Jin Woo being their final defense line had been instilled within them after witnessing his feats. And now, not just South Korea's own hunters, but the entire worlds were gathering in the capital city of this small nation in East Asia. Tens of thousands of hunters surrounding the spot just below the gate held their breaths and waited. This was a memorable spectacle. This sight of countless hunters waiting for one single moment to happen. The close-quarter type hunters quietly waited for their turns, while those capable of attacking at long distances got ready to fling out preemptive strikes at a moment's notice. Arrows laden with magical energy and various spells ready to be cast were aimed at the sky. Taut tension filled up the atmosphere. And then, whenever the gazes of these hunters stopped glaring at the gate above and lowered to the ground, they would all look at one place without fail. That would be Jin Woo's back. Standing at the furthest front, Jin Woo was glaring up at the sky with a somber expression. With every passing second, the dungeon break was approaching closer and closer. He could sense their aura now. The black heart, replacing his destroyed human heart, powerfully pulsed within his chest to let him know of the current situation. Of course, the hearts of other hunters were pounding away restlessly as well. Hien, standing next to him, saw his expression and whispered to him, "I think it's my first time seeing you so tense like this, Mr. Jin Woo." "Really?" Jin Woo smirked to let her know that it was nothing. Hien also formed a light smile as a reply and looked back at the gate while unsheathing her blade. She too had sensed that the beginning of the life or death battle was here. Soon, however, she was mistaken about something. Jin Woo placed his hand on his chest and silently closed his eyes. He felt the pounding of his heart. The emotion welling up in his chest was neither nervousness nor terror. No, it was excitement. See, they are coming. The gate's been opened. Finally, the gate began opening up. The wall separating this world and the gate disappeared, and certain things staying within finally began pouring out in endless droves. These creatures completely blotted out the sky in no time at all. The hunters below became completely dumbfounded by the number of descending creatures that seemed to be at least over 100,000. But how? How can that many monsters? At the same time, there are just too many. Gasps and screams thick with despair exploded out from here and there. All those certain things must have been under the influence of gravity reduction magic, because they all landed on the ground very slowly. Attack! Hurry, attack! Everyone, attack! Before those things land on the ground, they should try to reduce their numbers, at least by a little bit. Hunters sensed that their opportunity was here and began making their moves. Magic spells ready to cast gleamed brightly from their hands, and bowstrings aimed at the sky were all pulled taut. Tankers raised their shields up right near their chins to get ready for close quarters combat with those descending things. But then, before the concentrated firepower from the hunters could pour out, Jin Woo loudly yelled out. Jin Woo's will, carried by mana, was clearly transmitted to even those hunters who didn't know any Korean, and it made everyone stop what they were doing. But why? Why did he stop us from attacking? Even though tens of thousands of hunters were staring at him with eyes that screamed, "I don't understand." Jin Woo simply repeated what he said. Wu Jinqiao, watching from the distance, hurriedly wiped the sweat off his forehead. If they don't attack now, then those creatures would land safely on the ground. When the battle breaks out in that situation, the hunters out in front could get sucked into the attacks fired from the back. Meaning, incidents of them worrying about the friendly fire would happen when they were already in a numerical disadvantage. Everyone, do not fire. Do not fire. Wu Jinqiao was put in charge of commanding the hunters. So, rather understandably, they became quite dazed and lowered their hands when he began telling them not to attack. Just what are they thinking now? They want to engage those things on the ground instead of hitting them first with ranged attacks against that many monsters. As confusion and terror began whipping up around the battlefield, eventually those creatures landed on the ground. The number of black monsters completely filling up the sights of the hunters were so great that one's mind would grow faint just from the sheer scale. From the gathered swarm of monsters, one particular being began walking out towards them. Jin Woo, too, stepped forward. Just what was going to happen from here onwards. Hunters couldn't even breathe properly and closely watched Jin Woo. Jin Woo stopped walking, and the monster also stopped walking as well. And then, the monster looking at Jin Woo suddenly knelt down on the ground. And at that moment, the soldiers behind it also knelt down at the same time. The spectacle of 100,000 plus soldiers bowing their heads at the same time carried an incredible, overwhelming shock value. After a short bout of silence passed, the monster kneeling right out in front raised its head and spoke. 50,000 or so hunters from all corners of the globe, here to defend against the supermassive gate, watched dazedly as the black monsters began kneeling before Jinwu. Jesus, this sea of soldiers wrapped in black armor or black smoke seemed to go on forever. Every single one of these creatures possessed an incredible amount of magical energy, but there was something else that made the gathered hunters doubt their own eyes even more. That. Could that be? Right at the end there, you see what's right at the end there, right? Yeah, I can see it. Hunters pointed to the back of this army of black soldiers, their complexions paling greatly. More specifically, they were pointing to the 3 black dragons at the back of the army who were obediently lowering their heads before their owner, as if they were house-trained pets or some such. Jinwu swept his gaze over the Grand Marshal Bellion and the seemingly endless number of shadow soldiers kneeling behind their leader. So, this is the real Shadow Army. Jinwu took a long, hard look at his soldiers as his heart raced faster and faster. The thing was, those kneeling before him weren't the only Shadow Army, now were they? If these guys were the soldiers that belonged to the former Shadow Sovereign Osborne, then Jinwu too possessed his own loyal soldiers, as well. Come out, even more shadow soldiers materialized from behind Jinwu at his beckoning. Their numbers had already ballooned to near 2,000 by now. Baru, Ygritte, Greed, Number 6, Fangs, Iron, Jima, Tank, etc. all filled up the space behind Jinwu. Finally, the separated Shadow Army had become whole. A powerful force capable of standing up against the enemies, and their armies had been completed. Jinwu was taking a sweeping look at the other hunters before he literally slid into his own shadow and disappeared without a trace.